Welcome back to Robot Ray Channel. Today, we're counting down the top 10 most hated emperors in history. These rulers are remembered not for their glory, but for their infamy. Let's dive into their stories and find out what made them so despised. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more incredible videos. Number 10. Emperor Commodus, the decline of Rome. Emperor Commodus, who reigned from 180 to 192 CE, is infamous for his erratic behavior and self-indulgence, which starkly contrasted with his father, the revered Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Commodus indulged in extravagant gladiatorial combats, often participating himself, and demanded to be worshipped as a living god. His reign marked a period of instability and decline for the Roman Empire, as he neglected his duties and allowed corruption and mismanagement to flourish. Commodus' obsession with his own grandeur led to the construction of numerous statues in his likeness, further alienating the Roman Senate and the people. Commodus' reign ended in tragedy and violence. After surviving multiple assassination attempts, he was eventually strangled to death by his own wrestling partner in a conspiracy involving his closest advisors and his mistress, Marcia. The chaos and disorder of his rule left Rome in a vulnerable state, paving the way for a series of civil wars and a further decline in the empire's stability. His death marked the end of the Nerva-Antonine dynasty, and his legacy as one of Rome's most hated emperors was cemented by his reckless disregard for the well-being of his empire and its people. Number 9. Emperor Nero, the tyrant of Rome. Emperor Nero, who ruled from 54 to 68 CE, is one of the most notorious and reviled figures in Roman history. Initially popular for his artistic ambitions and efforts to reduce taxes, Nero's reign soon descended into a reign of terror. His extravagant lifestyle, obsession with performing arts, and ruthless elimination of perceived rivals, including his own mother Agrippina, led to widespread dissatisfaction. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 CE, which devastated much of the city, was a turning point. Although Nero took measures to aid the victims and rebuild the city, rumors that he had started the fire to clear space for his lavish palace, the Domus Aurea, severely tarnished his reputation. His subsequent persecution of Christians, whom he scapegoated for the fire, added to his infamy. Nero's later years were marked by increasing paranoia and cruelty. He executed numerous senators and members of his own court, including his former mentor Seneca, on charges of conspiracy. His erratic behavior and disregard for the well-being of the empire led to multiple revolts. In 68 CE, facing rebellion from the Senate and the provinces, Nero fled Rome. Abandoned by his guards and declared a public enemy, he took his own life, reportedly uttering the famous last words, "What an artist dies in me." Nero's death plunged Rome into a year of civil war, known as the Year of the Four Emperors, and his legacy as a tyrant and despot was etched into history. Number 8. Emperor Caligula, the Mad Emperor of Rome. Emperor Caligula, born Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, ruled Rome from 37 to 41 CE and is remembered as one of history's most infamous tyrants. Initially, his reign began with great promise, as he was the beloved son of the respected Germanicus and the grandnephew of Emperor Tiberius. However, after an illness in the first year of his rule, Caligula's behavior became increasingly erratic and despotic. He is reputed to have engaged in numerous acts of cruelty, extravagance, and perversion. Caligula declared himself a living god, demanding worship and even planning to make his horse, Enceladus, a consul, symbolizing his disdain for the Senate and Roman traditions. Caligula's reign was marked by extravagant spending, heavy taxation, and severe financial strain on the empire. His public spectacles, such as gladiatorial games and elaborate building projects, drained the treasury. His ruthless purges of political rivals and perceived enemies created a climate of fear and instability. His tyrannical actions ultimately led to his assassination in 41 CE, orchestrated by members of the Praetorian Guard, the Senate, and even his own advisors. Caligula's brief but notorious reign left a lasting legacy of madness and cruelty in Roman history, overshadowing the initial hope and potential he had once represented. Number 7. Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. Emperor Qin Shi Huang, born Ying Zheng, was the first emperor of a unified China, ruling from 221 to 210 BCE. His reign was marked by significant achievements, including the standardization of Chinese script, weights, and measures, as well as the construction of vast infrastructure projects like the early Great Wall and an extensive road network. However, his methods of achieving and maintaining power were notoriously ruthless. Qin Shi Huang is known for his draconian legalist policies, which included severe punishments and the suppression of dissent. His infamous burning of books and burying of scholars alive were efforts to eliminate intellectual opposition and consolidate his authority, actions that have marred his legacy. Despite his contributions to the foundation of a centralized Chinese state, Qin Shi Huang's reign was characterized by paranoia and tyranny. He embarked on an obsessive quest for immortality, commissioning alchemists to create elixirs and building a massive underground mausoleum guarded by the famous terracotta army. His relentless pursuit of power and control, coupled with oppressive policies and forced labor, led to widespread suffering among the populace. After his death, the harshness of his rule and the burden of his ambitious projects triggered widespread revolts, leading to the rapid collapse of the Qin dynasty. His legacy remains a complex mix of visionary leadership and brutal authoritarianism. Number 6. Emperor Ivan IV, Ivan the Terrible, the first Tsar of Russia. Emperor Ivan IV, more commonly known as Ivan the Terrible, was the first Tsar of Russia, reigning from 1547 to 1584. He is remembered for his complex and often contradictory legacy. On one hand, Ivan was a visionary ruler who centralized the Russian state, expanded its territory through conquests, and reformed the government. His establishment of the Oprichnina, a separate territory directly controlled by the Tsar and policed by his loyal Oprichniki, was intended to consolidate his power and curb the influence of the boyar nobility. These efforts helped lay the foundation for the modern Russian state. However, Ivan's reign was also marked by extreme violence and paranoia, earning him the moniker, the Terrible. His Oprichniki enforced his will with brutal efficiency, leading to widespread fear and suffering. The massacre of Novgorod in 1570, where thousands were executed on suspicions of treason, exemplifies the terror of his rule. Ivan's later years were characterized by erratic behavior and increasing cruelty, including the tragic incident in which he killed his own son in a fit of rage. His reign left Russia in a state of turmoil and set a precedent for the absolute power of the Tsar, overshadowing his achievements with a legacy of fear and despotism. Number 5. Emperor Leopold II, the ruthless colonialist. Emperor Leopold II of Belgium, who reigned from 1865 to 1909, is infamously remembered for his brutal exploitation of the Congo Free State, which he personally controlled from 1885 to 1908. Leopold acquired the Congo under the guise of humanitarian and philanthropic efforts, but his true intentions were purely economic. He exploited the region's resources, particularly rubber, through a regime of forced labor, violence, and terror. The local population was subjected to horrific abuses, including mutilation, murder, and enslavement, leading to the deaths of millions. This brutal regime was conducted with the primary aim of enriching Leopold and his associates, making him one of history's most reviled figures. The atrocities committed in the Congo under Leopold's rule eventually sparked international outrage and condemnation. Reports by missionaries, journalists, and activists, most notably the British consul Roger Casement and the American journalist E.D. Morel, brought the horrific conditions to global attention. The intense pressure led to the Belgian government taking control of the Congo in 1908, ending Leopold's personal rule. However, the legacy of his brutal exploitation had lasting impacts on the region, with profound social, economic, and political consequences that endured long after his death. Leopold II's reign remains a stark reminder of the devastating effects of unchecked imperialism and greed. Number 4. Emperor Justinian II, the ruthless ruler. Emperor Justinian II, who ruled the Byzantine Empire in two separate reigns from 685 to 695 and 705 to 711, is known for his ambitious yet often brutal approach to governance. His first reign was marked by significant military and administrative reforms, including efforts to strengthen the empire's borders and reorganize its provinces. However, his heavy taxation and autocratic rule led to widespread discontent among his subjects and the nobility. In 695, he was overthrown in a coup led by the patrician Leontios, who ordered Justinian's nose to be cut off, an act meant to disqualify him from future rule according to Byzantine custom. Remarkably, Justinian II managed to return to power in 705 with the help of the Bulgar and Slavic forces. His second reign was characterized by a fierce desire for revenge against those who had wronged him. He brutally punished his enemies, including executing many of those who had rebelled against him. Despite his efforts to restore stability, his harsh methods and distrust of the nobility led to another revolt. In 711, he was finally overthrown and killed, ending his turbulent and controversial rule. Justinian II's legacy is one of both significant achievements and profound brutality, earning him a place among history's most hated emperors. Number 3. Emperor Hirohito, the controversial figurehead. Emperor Hirohito, who reigned as the 124th Emperor of Japan from 1926 to 1989, remains one of the most controversial figures in history. During his reign, Japan experienced dramatic transformations, most notably its aggressive military expansion leading up to and during World War II. Under Hirohito's rule, Japan invaded Manchuria, China, and several Southeast Asian countries, committing numerous war atrocities, including the Nanking Massacre. Though the extent of Hirohito's direct involvement in military decisions is still debated, many see him as a figurehead who did not do enough to curb the militaristic ambitions of his government, thereby bearing moral responsibility for the war crimes committed. After Japan's defeat in 1945, Hirohito was allowed to retain his throne but had to renounce his divine status as part of Japan's surrender terms and the subsequent Allied occupation. This decision by the Allied powers, particularly the United States, was controversial as it aimed to ensure a smoother transition to peace and stability in Japan. Hirohito's post-war image was reshaped from a divine ruler to a symbol of the state and unity of the Japanese people. Despite his lengthy reign and efforts to rebuild Japan, his legacy remains marred by the brutal wartime period, making him one of history's most hated emperors. Number 2. Emperor Tiberius, the reluctant tyrant. Tiberius, the second Roman emperor who ruled from 14 AD to 37 AD, is often remembered as one of history's most hated rulers. Initially, he was a successful military leader, but his reign as emperor was marked by political intrigue, paranoia, and cruelty. Tiberius was a reluctant ruler, often described as an introverted and morose figure who preferred solitude to the pomp of power. His early reign was relatively stable, but he grew increasingly reclusive, eventually withdrawing to the island of Capri in 26 AD. From there, he left the administration in the hands of Lucius Aelius Sejanus, who abused his power, leading to widespread fear and corruption in Rome. The later years of Tiberius's reign were characterized by a reign of terror. Sejanus's fall from power in 31 AD resulted in a series of purges and executions of those perceived as enemies of the state. Tiberius's detachment and rumored debauchery on Capri only fueled the perception of him as a tyrant disconnected from the people he ruled. His death in 37 AD was met with relief by many in Rome, who saw his reign as a period of moral decline and autocratic oppression. Despite his effective early rule, Tiberius's legacy is overshadowed by his latter years of paranoia and cruelty, solidifying his reputation as a hated and feared emperor. Number 1. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, though not an emperor in the traditional sense, rose to power as the dictator of Nazi Germany and became one of the most reviled figures in modern history. Born in Austria in 1889, Hitler joined the German Workers' Party in 1919, which later transformed into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, or Nazi Party. Through skillful oratory and exploiting social unrest, Hitler ascended to chancellorship in 1933. He quickly consolidated power, dismantled democratic institutions, and established a totalitarian regime. Hitler's policies were marked by aggressive expansionism, leading to the outbreak of World War II in 1939. He implemented the systematic persecution and extermination of millions, primarily Jews, in what became known as the Holocaust. Hitler's military ambitions and ideological zeal brought unprecedented destruction to Europe and resulted in the deaths of millions. His regime collapsed in 1945 with Germany's defeat in World War II, and Hitler committed suicide in his bunker in Berlin as Allied forces closed in. His legacy remains synonymous with genocide, fascism, and the horrors of war, ensuring his place as one of history's most hated figures. Thanks for watching. Which emperor do you think was the worst? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more incredible historical insights. See you next time on Robot Ray Channel.